You used to call it love. But it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like waiting. Like walking barefoot over shards of glass. Like losing your own voice, one word at a time. And still, you stayed. Because they taught you that love was sacrifice. That love was patience. That love hurt. But Simone de Beauvoir saw through that lie long before you did. She called it what it truly was, submission disguised as romance. They taught you to love as if it were a duty. To forgive everything. To expect nothing. To slowly disappear so someone else could shine. But when did love become a prison? When did you stop being the main character in your own story? Simone de Beauvoir warned us. She said women aren't born submissive, they are made that way. Conditioned to believe that being chosen by a man was the highest form of validation. That being desired was the same as being valuable. And that our silence was a sign of strength, not repression. We were taught to wait for the message. To say sorry first. To lower our standards so we wouldn't end up alone. They said loneliness was failure, that any love, even the one that hurts, was better than none. But Beauvoir rejected that idea. She wrote, "To be free is not to be loved for being silent, small, or soft. To be free is to be whole, even if that means being alone." The truth is, many of us never learned how to love without disappearing. We confused attachment with affection. Took control as a sign of care. Believed that being needed was the same as being respected. And when he yelled, you told yourself he was just tired. When he stopped asking about your day, you said it was stress. When you cried and he turned his face away, you thought maybe you were just too sensitive. That's what they taught you, right? That women feel too much, want too much, expect too much. But there is no respect in a love that erases you. No dignity in a bond that demands your silence. No freedom in a relationship where only one person matters. And maybe, just maybe, you're starting to see that now. Maybe you're finally asking the same question Beauvoir asked decades ago, am I loved, or am I possessed? That question changes everything. Because once you see the prison, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how your voice trembles before speaking. How your choices are filtered through his reactions. How your dreams became smaller, more convenient, less threatening. And deep down, you know, this was never love. It was fear. It was habit. It was a story handed to you, just so you'd never write your own. Some of us were taught to serve, not through force, but through praise. Praised for being quiet. Praised for being easy to handle. Praised for putting others first. But love that demands your silence is not love. It's obedience. And you were never meant to live on your knees. Simone de Beauvoir believed that love could be real, but only between two free people. Not between a master and a servant. Not between a savior and a project. Not between a man and a woman trapped in roles they never chose. She wrote, one is not born, but rather becomes, a woman. And I'd add, we are not born to suffer, but taught that suffering is love. But what if you stopped believing that? What if you allowed yourself to unlearn the myth of romantic salvation? What if love no longer meant vanishing? What if, instead of begging to be loved, you began to become love itself? There is a version of you on the other side of this pain. A version that remembers her own worth. A version that doesn't shrink to fit into someone else's story. A version that doesn't need to be chosen to feel whole. This version isn't afraid of loneliness, because she knows she's already complete. And if love comes, it won't be to fill a void, it'll be to dance beside her. You were not made to settle for crumbs. You were made to feast on respect. To build castles with someone who wants to share the throne, not see you kneel on the floor. You are not too much. You are intense, alive, whole. And anyone who asks you to be less doesn't deserve the more you carry. Yes, you called it love. But Simone de Beauvoir called it what it truly was, a prison built by culture, tradition, and fear. A story passed from woman to woman. A legacy of silence dressed in white. But that story ends here. Because now, you're the one writing the new one. And this time, you're writing it out loud. Without asking permission. Without waiting to be chosen. Because you've already chosen yourself. But maybe you still feel afraid. Afraid to leave the familiar. Afraid you'll never be loved again. Afraid to realize you spent years trying to save something that was never mutual. And that fear is valid. Because fear was taught too. Whispered. In fairy tales, screamed in soap operas, repeated by mothers and neighbors, better the bad you know than the unknown you fear. But the emptiness you fear is not absence, it's space. Space to breathe. Space to hear your own voice without the echo of judgment. Space to choose what you really want. And when you allow yourself that space, you start to realize that solitude can be sacred. You start to remember the things you loved before you loved someone else. The songs you listened to. The dreams you sketched. The desires you silenced. You rediscover the version of yourself that was locked in a drawer. And she's still there. Whole. Strong. Ready. Simone de Beauvoir didn't want a world without love. She wanted a world where love wasn't the price of women's freedom. Where love wasn't a contract of silence. Where women could love without apologizing for being too much. And that's why you're here. Not to blame yourself for what you endured, but to be proud of your awakening. Because awakening is this, waking up in the middle of the night and realizing the dream they sold you was a prison. It's getting out of bed even with fear, even with pain, even with doubt. It's looking in the mirror and not seeing what you lost, but what you still have the power to reclaim. You don't need all the answers today. You don't need to break all the chains now. But you do need to take the first step. And that step is to look at yourself with compassion. Not as someone broken, but as someone under reconstruction. You are not alone. Every woman who dared to choose herself, who dared to say no, who dared to leave even while still loving, was called selfish. But deep down, she was just trying to survive. And survival is not selfishness. It is resistance. It is the beginning of freedom. But here's something they never told you: freedom can feel like grief. Healing is not a straight line, but a spiral, where you revisit the same place over and over, but each time, you rise a little higher. No one warned you that breaking free can feel lonelier than staying. That the silence after escape is not peace, it's detox. Detox from dependency. From guilt. From the belief that your worth depends on how well you care for someone who never cared for you. They taught you to be everything: lover, listener, nurse, confidant, cheerleader, therapist. You poured yourself like water into a cup that never held you. You became so good at being what he needed, you forgot what you needed. And now, the question that echoes in the silence: who am I when I am not needed by anyone? And the answer comes. Slowly. Not like thunder, but like a whisper. A breath. A day when you eat just for yourself. A night when you sleep without fear. A moment in front of the mirror when you no longer see a ghost, but a woman rebuilding. Simone de Beauvoir never said to stop loving. She said to stop disappearing in the name of love. She didn't write for perfect women, she wrote for the messy, the lost, the ones with cracked voices and trembling hands. She wrote for you. Because you weren't born to be someone else's echo. You were born to make noise. To disturb. To question. To expand. And maybe that's why they tried to tame you. Because a woman who knows her own mind becomes dangerous. In a world built to silence her. A woman who says no breaks a tradition older than language. A woman who leaves a man, not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself. That woman burns every manual. But you're no longer here to follow old rules. You're here to write new ones. To be your own beginning, not just someone's chapter. To choose softness when you want, and fury when needed. To fall in love without giving up your spine. And if you fall again, and you will fall with eyes open, hands steady, heart unshaken. Because this time, you know, real love never asks you to abandon yourself. Let them call you too much. Dramatic, rebellious, emotional, furious. Those are the words used to extinguish the fire of a woman who refuses to be put out. Because the truth is, you are not too much. The world has simply been too little for women like you. Too little in compassion. Too little in space. Too little in language to name your rage, your hunger, your sweetness, your brilliance, your chaos. And now, you are reclaiming all of it. You are making peace with your contradictions. You're no longer asking for permission to exist. You are learning that softness is not weakness. That boundaries are acts of self-love. That no can be the most loving word in your vocabulary, not for them, but for you. You are rewriting what it means to be a woman. Not a savior. Not a saint. Not a shadow. A woman who can walk away. A woman who can stay. A woman who can choose. A woman who can burn it all down and build something better from the ashes. That is love. Not the kind they sold you. But the kind you find in your own hands, in your own voice, in your own soul. And when someone asks what kind of woman you're becoming, say this: I am not becoming softer to be loved. I am becoming stronger to be free. I am not healing to be chosen. I am healing to choose myself. Again. And again. And again. If this video spoke to you, if at any moment you saw yourself in these words, these pains, these awakenings, then you've already started to break free. And most importantly, you are not alone. This channel exists to be a shelter, a flame, a mirror. A place where whole, imperfect, courageous women, like you, can find themselves again. So if this touched your heart, subscribe now to Beauvoir's Daughters. Be part of a community that is unlearning submission, rebuilding freedom, and reclaiming its voice. And in the next video, we'll go even deeper with the question: why do women love men who erase them? After what you'll discover, you'll never see your past relationships the same way again.